Chapter 4, Attitude, Emotions, and Ethics. We think about the word attitude, and we all will talk about different people having attitude, and usually when it's something kind of over the top. What attitude is, it's a psychological tendency expressed by evaluating a particular entity with some degree of favor or disfavor. Summarizing, an attitude is evaluating something and you either like it or you don't. You don't tend to have an attitude until you respond to something, the entity, on an affective, cognitive, or behavioral basis. The ABC model. Affect, behavioral intention, and cognitive. So each component of attitude, the affect tends to be the feelings, behavioral intentions tend to be what you plan to do. Notice it's an intention. And the cognition is how I think. Attitudes have to be formed, so how are they formed? You have a direct experience, social learning, and you form an attitude. With social learning, as we interact, those interactions shape our attitudes. Attitude and behavior. There is a degree to where an attitude will predict your behavior, but that depends on different areas of attitude, how specific or how important it is, your personality, timing, social constraints. Cognizant dissonance is when you believe something and your behavior does something different and you realize that they're not connecting, which is the dissonance, and we usually try to work to resolve that dissonance. We all have work attitudes. Directly or indirectly, our attitudes affect our work. What managers care about is those attitudes connected to job satisfaction and organizational commitment. These are some of the items that have an impact on our job satisfaction. Organizational citizenship behavior. This tends to be a case when you are acting as an organizational citizen, you're going above and beyond, and you feel strongly. Workplace deviance behavior. This can be serious, and in any way, it's not a positive. This can be an attitude result where things are not positive. It can be like sabotage, not finishing something. Obviously, sabotage would be going to a legal problem in an extreme. Organizational commitment. We look at that in three ways: effective, continuance, and normative. Effective is where an employee intends to stay with that organization because they care about it, desire to be there, and believe in the organization. Persuasion is a way to change attitudes, which at times we all want to do that to somebody. So through persuasion, you have a source, you have a target, and the source influences the target to adjust an attitude. The persuasion process, the source has certain characteristics, the target has certain characteristics, and the message you're giving has certain characteristics. And what those are will affect the process. The central root is when you have more effort, more importance. The peripheral root tends to be when something is less important or does not have an attitude as strong. Emotions and moods at work. I suspect every one of us can talk about different people's emotions and moods at work. Emotions, discrete, fairly short-lived feelings. Moods tend to be a little bit more enduring, and they may not be connected to a specific cause like an emotion is. Moods, emotion, and cognitions, how we think, are all connected. When you work, we have to cope with our own positive, negative emotions along with those around us. Obviously, the more positive, the better things are. Moods usually relate to positive and negative. Positive mood tends to relate in positive behavior. Negative mood can show behavior that isn't so great. Emotions in the workplace. Emotional contagion. Think of contagious. It's where somebody's emotion affects us. Emotional intelligence, knowing how to manage and recognize our emotions. And emotional labor, how hard we work to keep those in a certain position or in check. Ethical behavior. Talked a little bit about this in chapter 2. In the Wall Street Journal, in 1 week of articles, these were the type of ethical issues that appeared in the different stories. When you're looking at ethical behavior, and this is on an individual basis, you have some values, locus controls. The organizational situation does, and the relationship can result in a behavior hopefully ethical. Ethical decision making. Values. Enduring beliefs. Something you tend to connect to. So we tend to have a feeling of right or wrong in connection to our values, which forms our basis for ethical behavior. There are instrumental values and terminal values. Some work values: achievement, concern for others, honesty, fairness. Not everybody's values are the same, and as a manager, you're managing those diverse values. These are different things you consider as you work with the diverse values. Locus control we talked about, I believe, in chapter 2. And that's believing, basically, if you have control over situations or whether it's all controlled by the outside. Which makes sense, as people that have an internal focus of control will tend to make more of an ethical decision than those that are external control. Machiavellism has to do with power and getting one's way. Cognitive moral development. This is at an individual level. Pre-moral, you do what you're supposed to because you avoid punishment. The conventional level, You want to live up to expectations. Principled level, you're based on your own principles and values. This is similar to the ethical theories we talked about in Chapter 2.